Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back in time, way back, to a world where jaguars prowl the shadows, where towering pyramids pierce a humid, star-strewn sky, and where the rustle of the jungle is the constant soundtrack to life. We're going to transport ourselves to the heart of the ancient Maya civilization, a place of vibrant colors, complex calendars, and profound spiritual beliefs. Imagine thick, warm air, smelling of damp earth and exotic flowers, pressing in around you. You hear the distant call of howler monkeys, a sound that chills you to the bone, even as you know it's just part of the everyday symphony. You feel the rough, cool stone beneath your bare feet as you navigate a world utterly alien, yet strangely compelling. This isn't just a story, it's an immersion. And let me tell you, if you were actually there, with no bug spray, no air conditioning, and a diet consisting mostly of corn, you probably wouldn't survive a week. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now in the comments. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You feel the first stirrings of consciousness not as a coherent thought, but as a sensation of warmth, of being held close. You are a tiny, squalling bundle in your mother's arms, wrapped in soft, hand-woven cotton, the world a blur of color and muffled sound. This is your beginning in a small, thatched roof house nestled on the edge of a bustling Mayan village in the southern lowlands. Sometime around the 7th century CE, your parents, humble farmers, are probably exhausted but beaming. Your father, Chak, is a sturdy man, his hands calloused from years of working the milpa, the cornfield that is the lifeblood of your family. Your mother, Ixchel, is gentle, her dark eyes filled with a mixture of love and an unspoken hope for your future. You are just another mouth to feed. Yes, but also a continuation, a new thread in the intricate tapestry of your lineage. The air inside your home is thick with the smell of wood smoke from the hearth, where corn tortillas sizzle and black beans simmer. Outside, the jungle teems with life, a constant, vibrant hum that will be the soundtrack to your entire existence. You are not born into royalty, nor into the elite priestly class, but into the bedrock of Mayan society, the farmers, the backbone that supports the entire complex structure of your civilization. Your earliest memories will be fragmented, the dappled sunlight filtering through the palm fronds of your roof, the rhythmic thud of your mother grinding corn on a matete, the distant shouts of children playing near the village well. You'll learn to crawl on an earth floor, cool and smooth under your small hands, and your first steps will be taken amidst the clucking of chickens and the curious gaze of a family dog. As you grow, the world slowly takes shape. You see the towering ceiba tree at the edge of your village, its massive trunk a sacred conduit between the underworld, the earth, and the heavens. You taste the sweet flesh of sapodilla fruit and the slightly bitter, energizing kick of cacao. You feel the sticky humidity cling to your skin for most of the year, broken only by the brief cooler dry season. Your village, though modest, is a hive of activity. Everyone has a role, from the potters shaping clay into beautiful vessels to the weavers creating intricate textiles. You observe, you mimic, you slowly absorb the rhythms of life. Your grandfather, a quiet man with a knowing glint in his eye, might tell you stories of the Yakshi, the world tree, and how it holds the cosmos together. He might point to the stars, tracing invisible lines between them, whispering names you don't yet understand. A mainstream historical fact you will eventually learn is that the Maya, despite their decentralized city-states, shared a remarkably consistent cultural and linguistic heritage across a vast geographic area. From the lowlands of Petén to the highlands of Guatemala, you would find similar architectural styles, religious beliefs, and of course, those incredibly complex calendars. It's truly mind-boggling when you think about it, a shared identity spread across hundreds of kilometers without modern communication. Now, a quirky tidbit. Did you know that for some Mayan groups, crossing your eyes was considered beautiful? Parents would even try to induce it in their children by hanging a small bead between their eyes. Imagine trying to convince your parents that your lazy eye was actually a sign of supreme beauty. Maybe that's why everyone in those ancient murals looks so perpetually focused, trying to get those eyes just right. Historians still argue whether the classic Maya collapse was a single event or a gradual process. Was it drought, warfare, environmental degradation, or a combination of all of the above, a slow unraveling rather than a sudden snap? You, living in this bustling, vibrant era, can't even conceive of such a thing. For you, the world feels eternal, anchored by the cycles of the sun and rain, by the planting and harvesting of corn, by the immutable presence of the gods. Yet, even in this stability, subtle currents move beneath the surface, preparing you for a life beyond the milpa, a life you cannot yet imagine. As a small child, your world is a kaleidoscope of sensory input, unfiltered and immediate. The squish of mud between your toes after a sudden downpour, the rough texture of a jaguar tooth amulet hanging around your father's neck, the sweet, earthy smell of copal incense burning during a village ceremony. These are your early lessons. You quickly learn the names of the common birds and animals, the agile spider monkeys that swing through the canopy, the iridescent quetzal, whose feathers are prized by the elite, and the ever-present, watchful jaguar, a creature both feared and revered. Your mother teaches you how to string beads, how to grind corn, how to weave simple patterns. Your father teaches you about the rhythms of the earth, when to plant, when to harvest, how to coax life from the soil. You are, by all accounts, destined for the life of a farmer, just like generations before you. But something is different about you. From an early age, people notice things. Perhaps it's your unusual quietness, your tendency to gaze at the stars long after the other children have fallen asleep. Or maybe it's the way you seem to understand things before they're explained, a certain intensity in your young eyes. Your birth itself, the village elders whisper, was accompanied by peculiar omens. A rare comet, they say, blazed across the night sky, a fiery serpent in the darkness. Or perhaps a jaguar, usually so elusive, was seen prowling unusually close to the village on the night you were born, its eyes glowing like embers. These aren't just idle tales. In your world, omens are taken seriously. They are messages from the gods, hints about a person's destiny. For you, they suggest a path diverging from the well-trodden fields. Your formal education, if you can call it that in these nascent years, begins at your mother's knee, learning practical skills. But soon, your peculiar qualities draw the attention of the Aken, the local priest and astronomer. He is an old man, stooped and wise, with intricate tattoos adorning his face and arms, marking him as a man of profound knowledge. His eyes, though ancient, sparkle with an almost otherworldly intelligence. He lives in a house slightly grander than the others, near the village's small, unadorned temple platform where the sacred fires are kept burning. One day, he approaches your parents, his presence commanding respect, yet his voice is gentle. He speaks of the omens, of the unique spark he perceives in you. He offers to take you on as a sort of informal student, to teach you things beyond the milpa. Your parents, though reluctant to lose a pair of hands in the fields, understand the weight of such an offer. To refuse would be to defy the will of the gods. And who would want that kind of bad karma? So, with a mixture of pride and apprehension, they agree. Your days begin to change. While you still help with chores, a significant portion of your time is now spent with the Akin. He starts by teaching you observation. Not just casual looking, but seeing. He takes you outside at night, pointing to the familiar constellations, which in Maya are often represented by animals. the scorpion, the turtle, the rattlesnake. He shows you how to track the slow, deliberate movement of Venus across the sky, explaining its significance as the harbinger of war or peace, depending on its position. You learn that the sky is not just a pretty backdrop, but a living, breathing calendar, a giant celestial clock dictating the flow of life on Earth. You also begin to learn the rudiments of the Maya numbering system. This isn't your familiar base 10 system, oh no. This is a vigesimal system, meaning it's base 20, and it's elegant in its simplicity, using just 3 symbols, a dot for 1, a bar for 5, and a shell-like glyph for 0. Imagine trying to do your taxes with dots and bars. It feels like a secret language, a code that unlocks the universe. The Akin patiently guides your small, fumbling fingers as you carve these symbols onto soft clay tablets or practice painting them onto bark paper. You find a surprising aptitude for it, the logic clicking into place in your young mind. A mainstream historical fact is that the Maya independently developed the concept of zero, a groundbreaking mathematical achievement that was crucial for their complex calendar system. This predates its development in India and its transmission to the West by hundreds of years. So yeah, pretty smart cookies, these Maya. A quirky or fringe tidbit, some researchers suggest that the Maya used psychedelic plants, such as certain types of mushrooms or morning glory seeds, in their spiritual practices to achieve altered states of consciousness. While we can't definitively say you, as a young apprentice, would be partaking, it certainly adds an extra layer of woe to their ceremonies. Imagine trying to explain that to your parents. Mom, Dad, I'm just expanding my mind for the gods. Historians still argue whether Mayan writing was primarily logographic, where symbols represent words, or syllabic, where symbols represent sounds. It's likely a combination of both, which makes it incredibly complex to decipher, even for modern scholars. You, however, just absorb it, not questioning the intricacies, simply learning the beautiful flowing glyphs as the Akim patiently reveals their secrets. Your world is expanding beyond the Mopa, beyond the village, towards the boundless star-filled cosmos. The transition from village child to temple apprentice isn't a sudden leap, but a gradual, deliberate absorption into a new way of life. You still live at home, but your days are increasingly structured around the Akin's lessons. The temple is not a massive, awe-inspiring edifice like those in the great cities, but a humble structure of stone and wood. Elevated on a small platform, its entrance always adorned with fresh flowers and burning incense. Inside, smells of dried herbs, copal, and the faint metallic tang of ritual blood, a smell that will become as familiar to you as the scent of rain-soaked earth. Your first true uniform is a simple, unbleached cotton tunic, a step up from your everyday working clothes, signifying your new status. You learn the proper way to address the king, not just with respect, but with a certain deferential reverence. He is your master, your guide, the conduit between your world and the divine. You spend hours observing him, mimicking his precise gestures as he sets out offerings, jade beads, feathers, small ceramic figurines, or carefully inscribes glyphs onto bark paper. Patience, he teaches you, is not merely a virtue, but a necessity for understanding the complex dance of the cosmos. One of your earliest tasks is the meticulous preparation of materials. You learn to make ink from soot and plant extracts, to prepare bark paper by soaking and pounding strips of fig tree bark until it's smooth and pliable. You learn to sharpen bone or obsidian styluses to a fine point, perfect for carving inscriptions. You are also tasked with maintaining the temple's cleanliness, sweeping the floor, tending the small, flickering sacred fires, and replacing the offerings when they grow stale. This isn't menial labor. It's part of the spiritual discipline, teaching humility and attention to detail. Every act, no matter how small, is a step towards understanding the sacred. The Akin begins to introduce you to the pantheon of Mayan gods. It's not a simple list. It's a vast, interconnected web of deities, many with multiple aspects, embodying both creation and destruction, life and death. You learn about Itzamna, the creator god, often depicted as a celestial bird or a wise old man. You learn about Kenechahal, the sun god, whose daily journey across the sky brings light and warmth. And of course there's Kukulkan, or Quetzalcoatl to our modern ears, though that's more from the later Toltec influence, the feathered serpent, a powerful deity of wisdom and wind. These aren't abstract concepts. These gods are real, influencing every aspect of your daily life, from the success of the harvest to the outcome of conflicts. You learn the specific prayers and offerings associated with each, when to invoke them, and what their favorite gifts are. It's like learning a complex social etiquette, but for beings of immense power. You also start to grasp the concept of time in the Mayan worldview. It's not linear, a straight line from past to future, but cyclical, a series of interconnected cycles repeating and interweaving. This is where your mathematical training truly comes into its own. The Akin shows you the glyphs for days and months, the various permutations that create the intricate patterns of the calendar. He explains the significance of each day, how certain days are auspicious for planting, others for marriage, and still others for warfare or divination. It's like having a cosmic weather forecast, but for your entire life. A mainstream historical fact about Mayan priests is that they were not just religious leaders. They were also the primary astronomers, mathematicians, and scribes of their society. They held immense power and prestige, as they were believed to be the intermediaries between the human realm and the divine. Essentially, they were the Silicon Valley engineers, the quantum physicists, and the spiritual gurus all rolled into one highly influential package. A quirky or fringe tidbit is the concept of a wayab, pronounced wayab, which were spirit companions or co-essences that Mayans believed they possessed. These could be animals, plants, or even natural phenomena. A powerful priest might have a jaguar or an eagle as his wayab, a spiritual twin that shared his destiny and could even be a source of power. Imagine having a spirit animal sidekick that was literally part of your soul. Way cooler than an imaginary friend, right? Historians still argue whether the Mayan script was primarily used for religious texts and monumental inscriptions, or if it was also widely used for more mundane record-keeping, like economic transactions or everyday correspondence. The few surviving codices, bark paper books, are predominantly astronomical and ritualistic, but that doesn't necessarily mean the script wasn't more broadly applied in perishable materials that simply didn't survive the humid jungle climate and the ravages of time and Spanish conquests, let's be honest. For you, learning to read and write these complex glyphs is akin to gaining access to the most profound knowledge your civilization possesses, a key to unlocking the very fabric of existence. With each passing season, your understanding of the temple's sacred rhythms deepens. The Akin is a patient, if demanding, teacher. He doesn't just impart information. He guides you towards understanding, nudging you to discover the connections yourself. You're past the basic counting and glyph recognition now. You're moving into the realm of complex calendrical calculations, the very heart of Mayan temporal philosophy. This isn't rote memorization. It's a profound engagement with the flow of existence. You begin to truly grasp the two main cycles that govern Mayan life, the Tzolk'in and the Hob. The Tzolk'in, or the Sacred Round, is a 260-day cycle formed by the interweaving of 13 numbers with 20-day names. Imagine trying to keep track of a calendar where every day has a unique name and number combination that only repeats every 260 days. It's like having a birthday that only comes around every 8.5 months. But instead of cake, it brings specific auguries and ritual significance. You learn the profound meaning of each day name: Imix, crocodile; Ik, wind, Ekbal, night, Kame, thinged, maze, Chiking, serpent, Chimi, death, Meni, Miwik, Wamit, Resi, dog, Chewin, monkey, Ebb, road, Ben, reed, Ix, jaguar, Men, eagle, Sib, wax, Caben, earth, Edsnape, flint, Kaut, road, Ben, Ken, Ni, Kaupa. Each one carries a specific energy, a unique influence on the world. You learn which days are good for planting, which for building, which for seeking counsel from the gods. It's a cosmic horoscope, updated daily. Then there's the Hab, the Vakir, a 365-day cycle closely aligned with the solar year. It consists of 18 months of 20 days each, plus a dreaded 5-day period at the end called the Waib, which is considered highly unlucky and dangerous. During the Waib, people would often withdraw, avoid travel, and take extra precautions, believing that the boundaries between worlds were thin and malevolent spirits could easily cross over. It's essentially your society's version of a perpetual Friday the 13th, but for 5 whole days. No, thank you. You learn the names of these months too, understanding their connection to agricultural cycles and seasonal changes. The true genius, however, lies in how these two calendars interlock. When a specific Delkin day, for example, for a How, aligns with a specific Hab day, for example, 8 Kumkyu, it forms a unique calendar round date that only repeats every 52 years. This 52-year cycle is incredibly significant, marking a full bundle of time. At the end of each 52-year cycle, special ceremonies of renewal and fire starting are held, symbolizing the rebirth of time and the continuation of the world. Imagine living through one of these cycles, seeing your entire adult life contained within that period, then witnessing its symbolic end and rebirth. It's a profound moment of reflection and renewal. Beyond the calendar round, the Akin introduces you to the concept of a long count. This is a linear calendar, counting days from a mythical starting point in 3114 BCE. It's used to track much longer periods of time, allowing for the precise dating of historical events, monumental inscriptions, and astronomical observations. It's what gives the Maya their famous end-of-the-world prophecies, which, spoiler alert, were actually just the end of a Baktan, a large cycle, not the end of everything. The long count employs a series of ever larger cycles: Kayan, day, Winal, 20 Kayan, Tun, 18 Winal, or 360 Kayan, Kayatan, 20 Kun, and Baktan, 20 Kayatan. To calculate these, you need to be a human calculator, able to juggle multiple base 20 conversions in your head while simultaneously considering the slightly irregular ton. It's mentally exhausting, but incredibly rewarding when the numbers finally click into place. You start to see how the past, present, and future are not just connected, but are part of an immense, predictable cosmic order. A mainstream historical fact is that the Maya calendar system, particularly the long count, was one of the most sophisticated and accurate in the ancient world, often more precise than European calendars of the same era. They were able to calculate astronomical events with astonishing accuracy, including eclipses and the cycles of Venus, without the aid of telescopes or advanced mathematical instruments. Pretty impressive for a civilization that didn't even have the wheel for transportation. A quirky tidbit: the Mayan calendar doesn't actually end in 2012, as was widely popularized in modern media. It simply marked the completion of a Baktan cycle, the 13th Baktan. To be exact, much like your odometer rolling over to all zeros, it was seen as a time of transition and renewal, not apocalypse. So all those doomsday preppers in 2012 were just a few millennia off their calculations. Historians still argue whether the Maya developed their calendars, primarily for practical agricultural purposes or for profound religious and astrological reasons. while the Hob clearly aligns with agricultural cycles. The Zulkan's purely ritualistic nature suggests a deeper spiritual motivation. It's likely a blend of both, a reflection of a society where the sacred and the mundane were inextricably intertwined. For you, the mastery of these calendars is not just about counting days. It's about understanding destiny, predicting the will of the gods, and ensuring the continued harmony of your community. Your nights are no longer simply for sleeping. Now they are for studying the vast, inky canvas above, learning to read the stories etched in starlight. The Akin patiently guides your gaze, teaching you to distinguish planets from stars, to track their movements, and to understand their divine significance. For the Maya, the cosmos isn't just a collection of distant lights. It's a living, breathing entity, a direct reflection of the gods' will and intentions. And you, as an aspiring astronomer priest, are learning to interpret its sacred language. You begin with the most obvious and important celestial bodies, the sun and the moon. The sun, Kinich Ahau, is paramount, its daily journey across the sky dictating the rhythm of life, providing warmth and light for the maize to grow. You learn to observe its precise rising and setting points throughout the year, marking the solstices and equinoxes on a makeshift horizon calendar, perhaps by aligning observations with specific features on distant hills or carefully placed stones. This isn't just for academic interest. These alignments are crucial for determining planting seasons, for knowing when to perform specific agricultural rituals, and for ensuring the continued prosperity of your people. It's like having a cosmic GPS, but instead of finding the nearest taco stand, it's helping you pinpoint the optimal time to appease the harvest gods. The moon, Ixchel, goddess of weaving, medicine, and childbirth, is equally significant. You meticulously track its phases, observing its waxing and waning, its path across the sky. The Akin explains the importance of lunar cycles for various ceremonies and for predicting eclipses. Eclipses, both solar and lunar, are not just interesting phenomena. They are seen as powerful, often ominous events, moments when the gods are actively intervening, perhaps even battling in the celestial realm. To predict them is to wield immense power, to be prepared for the divine drama unfolding above. You learn to record these observations with painstaking detail, using your newfound knowledge of glyphs and numbers to chart the celestial dance. Then there are the planets, which the Maya called wandering stars. Of these, Venus is by far the most important. To the Maya, Venus, or No-Ek, great star, is associated with warfare and sacrifice. You learn to track its helical rise and set, its intricate 584-day cycle, during which it appears as both the morning star and the evening star. The Akin explains how the movements of Venus are directly linked to the timing of battles, to the rise and fall of kings, and to the appropriate moments for ritual bloodletting. Imagine the pressure of advising your village leader to declare war based on the position of a distant planet. It's a bit more significant than checking the weather app before deciding to wear a jacket. You also learn to identify various constellations, though many of them are different from those recognized in Western astronomy. You might learn to spot the turtle, which corresponds to Orion's belt, or the scorpion, which is similar to our Scorpius. The Milky Way, the Great White Road, or World Tree to the Maya, is particularly revered, seen as a celestial river or a path for souls to travel. Your master shows you how to use simple sight tubes or carefully constructed alignments of structures to enhance your observations, focusing the eye on specific stars or planetary positions. You spend countless hours under the vast, clear night sky, feeling utterly minuscule yet profoundly connected to the immense cosmic order. A mainstream historical fact is that the Maya developed highly accurate astronomical tables, particularly for Venus, which they recorded in codices, bark paper books. These tables allowed them to predict the movements of celestial bodies with astonishing precision, far surpassing many other ancient civilizations. They really put the star in star students. A quirky or fringe tidbit: some Mayan ruins, like the Karkal Observatory at Chichen Itza, are thought to have specific windows and alignments that point to important astronomical events, such as the setting sun on the equinoxes or the extreme positions of Venus. It's like a giant, ancient astronomical clock built right into their architecture, a testament to their obsession with the heavens. Historians still argue whether the astronomical knowledge of the Maya was primarily derived from direct observation over centuries, or if they possessed some form of advanced mathematical models that allowed for predictive calculations. While meticulous observation was undoubtedly key, the complexity and accuracy of their predictions suggest a sophisticated theoretical framework that we are only beginning to understand. For you, the sky is a sacred text, and with each lesson from the Akin, you learn another glyph, another phrase in the divine language of the cosmos. With a growing understanding of the cosmos and the intricate calendrical cycles, your training shifts to the more visceral yet equally sacred aspects of priestly life, the rituals. The Akin begins to include you in the preparations for the various ceremonies that punctuate the rhythm of village life. These aren't just community gatherings. They are vital acts of communion with the gods, designed to maintain cosmic balance, to ensure the rains come, the corn grows, and the community prospers. And a significant, often misunderstood, part of these rituals is bloodletting. Now, don't picture anything gruesome or chaotic. This isn't some free-for-all. Mayan bloodletting is a highly ritualized, deeply personal, and profoundly sacred act. It's not about punishment or violence, but about offering the most precious substance, life force, embodied in blood, to the gods. You observe the Akin meticulously preparing. He might fast for days, purifying himself. He carefully lays out the tools: obsidian blades, stingray spines, or sharpened bone awls. These aren't just sharp objects. They are consecrated instruments imbued with spiritual significance. Imagine the reverence for these tools, knowing the power they hold. You learn that bloodletting is performed by individuals, often by the priest or a ruler, to open a portal to the spirit world, to communicate with ancestors or deities. The blood is typically drawn from soft tissues, the tongue, the earlobes, or the penis for men, because these areas are believed to be rich in spiritual energy and also less likely to be fatal. The blood is then collected on bark paper or cloth, which is subsequently burned, allowing the rising smoke to carry the offering to the heavens. It's a symbolic act of self-sacrifice, a profound gesture of piety and devotion. You witness the Akin performing this, his face stoic, his movements precise, his focus absolute. A mainstream historical fact is that Mayan bloodletting rituals were primarily performed by the elite, rulers and priests, as a means of legitimizing their power, communicating with the divine, and ensuring the well-being of their communities. It was a king's duty to shed his own blood for his people, much like a modern politician might give a blood donation drive, but with slightly higher stakes and pain. One of the most striking aspects of these ceremonies is the vision serpent. After the blood is shed and the paper burned, the smoke, combined with sensory deprivation and perhaps mind-altering substances, can induce vivid hallucinations. The Akin describes seeing a great serpent emerging from the smoke, from whose mouth ancestral spirits or deities appear, offering guidance or prophecy. It's a powerful experience, not just for the participant, but for the entire community watching, seeing their leader commune directly with the divine. You learn the specific chants and prayers to accompany these visions, how to interpret the messages, and how to record them for posterity. It's a bit like taking a very intense, high-stakes spiritual phone call. You also learn about other, less intense forms of offering. The burning of copal incense, its sweet, heavy smoke curling upwards, Carrying prayers to the heavens is a daily occurrence. Offerings of maize, cacao beans, jade, feathers, and elaborate textiles are carefully arranged on altars. These are expressions of gratitude, pleas for intervention, or simply acts of devotion. Every offering, no matter how small, is a recognition of the god's pervasive presence and power in the world. A quirky or fringe tidbit: some Mayan depictions show individuals passing ropes through their tongues, studded with obsidian blades, as part of their bloodletting rituals. While this sounds incredibly painful, it highlights the extreme lengths to which the Maya would go to connect with the divine, showing their deep spiritual commitment. Talk about a commitment to your craft. Modern piercing has nothing on these guys. Historians still argue whether the Maya viewed bloodletting as a literal feeding of the gods or as a more symbolic act of communication and spiritual purification. While the language used often suggests a literal feeding, the focus on opening portals and inducing visions points to a deeper, metaphysical understanding of the ritual's purpose. For you, participating in these rituals isn't just about following instructions. It's about feeling the profound connection between the human and the divine, understanding the immense responsibility that comes with facilitating that sacred dialogue. The weight of your community's well-being rests, in part, on your ability to perform these sacred acts correctly and with true devotion. With a firm grasp of the calendars and the intricate dance of the gods, your training now shifts towards interpretation, reading the subtle signs, both celestial and terrestrial, to divine the future and advise your community. This is where your role as a priest truly begins to solidify, moving from observer to active participant in shaping destiny. The Akin emphasizes that observation alone is not enough. It's the understanding and application of that knowledge that truly matters. You are learning the art of divination, a skill that demands not only intellectual rigor, but also a profound spiritual intuition. You learn to interpret omens in everything: the flight path of a particular bird, the call of a specific animal at an unusual time, the appearance of a strange cloud formation. All can be messages from the gods. You pore over ancient codices, not just for their calendrical data, but for the examples of past prophecies, the patterns of divine communication. The Akin presents you with scenarios, asking you to consider the position of Venus, the current Zolkin day, and any recent unusual events, then to formulate a likely outcome or a course of action. It's like being a detective, but the clues are spiritual and the stakes are the prosperity or even survival of your entire village. One of the primary tools for divination is the calendar itself. Certain days are inherently auspicious or inauspicious for particular activities. You learn to advise farmers when to plant their corn to ensure a bountiful harvest, when to clear new fields, or when to begin a new construction project. You might counsel a young couple on the most favorable day for their wedding, or a merchant on the best day to embark on a trading journey. It's a constant consultation, a weaving of cosmic influence into the fabric of daily life. Imagine trying to explain to your friend that you can't go to their party because the cosmic energy of the day is simply not conducive to social gatherings. Sorry, 7 Munich isn't great for mingling. You also learn to interpret dreams. Dreams, in the Mayan worldview, are not just random nocturnal wanderings of the mind. They are often direct communications from the spirit world, from ancestors, or from the gods themselves. The Akin teaches you to look for symbols, for recurring themes, for messages that might be cloaked in metaphor. You listen intently as villagers recount their dreams, piecing together fragments, searching for the underlying divine counsel. It's a delicate art, requiring empathy and a deep understanding of both individual psychology and communal spiritual beliefs. The art of prophecy is also a significant part of your training. This isn't just predicting the immediate future, but understanding the larger cycles of time and the potential shifts in the cosmic order. You study the cycles of the Khaton, the 20-year periods that are believed to have distinct characteristics and energies. Each ketan has a burden, a specific theme or destiny associated with it. By understanding the current ketan and the one to follow, you can offer guidance on long-term strategies, warn of potential challenges, or foresee periods of prosperity. It's like being a long-range weather forecaster, but for entire generations. A mainstream historical fact is that Mayan priests were integral to political decision-making, especially concerning warfare. Rulers would frequently consult with their akin to determine the most auspicious dates for battle based on astronomical alignments and calendrical calculations. A poorly chosen battle date from a spiritual perspective could spell disaster, regardless of military strength. So yes, these guys had a lot riding on their predictions. A quirky or fringe tidbit: the Maya are believed to have used a form of augury involving the observation of internal organs of sacrificed animals, similar to some Roman practices, though detailed records are scarce. Imagine trying to read the future from the liver of a turkey. It definitely takes reading the tea leaves to a whole new, slightly more visceral level. Historians still argue whether the Maya truly believed in rigid determinism dictated by their calendars and prophecies, or if they saw their divinations as guidance that could be influenced by human action and ritual. It's likely a nuanced view where destiny was partly set but also partly malleable, allowing for human agency within a divinely ordered universe. For you, the power of divination is both a privilege and a heavy responsibility, a constant challenge to correctly interpret the divine whispers and guide your people towards a harmonious future. Word reaches your village. A pilgrimage to Tikal is being organized. Tikal, the great city, a place you've only heard about in hushed, reverent tones. It's a city-state of immense power and prestige, a jewel in the lowland crown, famed for its towering pyramids that scrape the clouds and its bustling plazas. The Akin informs you that you are to accompany a small delegation from your village, a rare and invaluable opportunity to witness the grandeur of a major Mayan center and to learn from the more experienced priests there. Your heart pounds with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. It's like a small-town kid from, say, rural Nebraska suddenly being told they're going to spend a month in New York City, only instead of skyscrapers, you'll be seeing temples, and instead of taxis, it's a long, arduous trek through dense jungle. The journey itself is an education. You join a small caravan of porters laden with trade goods, cacao feathers, jade, and finely woven textiles for gifts and offerings, and a few guards for protection. You set off at dawn, the air cool and misty, the jungle slowly waking around you. The path is narrow, winding through thick vegetation, crossing small streams and muddy patches. You learn to identify the calls of exotic birds, the rustle of unseen creatures in the undergrowth. You discover the biting power of fire ants and the irritating hum of mosquitoes. This isn't a scenic walk, it's a test of endurance. You trudge for days, fueled by corn gruel and a sense of growing anticipation. As you near Tikal, the jungle canopy begins to thin, replaced by more open spaces, and then, slowly, majestically, the first monumental structures begin to appear. It starts subtly, a glimpse of carved stone, a hint of a massive platform rising above the trees. Then you see them, the pyramids. They are colossal, far grander than anything you could have imagined. Temple I, the temple of the great jaguar, rises over the canopy like a mountain carved by giants, its steep steps leading to a sky-high temple where kings were interred. You crane your neck, feeling an almost dizzying sense of awe. The sheer scale, the intricate carvings, the precision of the construction, it's a testament to the power, wealth, and faith of the Maya. A mainstream historical fact is that Tikal was one of the largest and most powerful city-states of the classic Maya period, boasting a population that may have reached 60,000 to 90,000 people at its peak. with an extensive network of plazas, temples, and residential complexes. It was essentially the ancient Mayan equivalent of a sprawling metropolis. The city is a sensory overload. The main plaza is a vibrant hub of activity, teeming with people. You see merchants hawking their wares, artisans displaying their crafts, priests in elaborate regalia moving with quiet authority, and nobles adorned with jade and quetzal feathers. The air buzzes with different dialects, the chatter of commerce, and the rhythmic chanting from distant temples. The smell is a complex blend of burning copal, cooking food, sweat, and damp earth. You observe the diverse faces, some with the distinctive sloping foreheads achieved through cranial deformation in infancy, others with jade inlays in their teeth, symbols of status and beauty. You feel small, yet exhilarated, a tiny cog in this magnificent, bustling machine. Your time in Tikal is spent primarily in the temple precincts. You attend grand ceremonies far more elaborate than anything in your village, with dozens of priests, musicians, and dancers. You witness rituals of sacrifice, not just bloodletting, but sometimes the offering of precious objects, or even, though rarely in your experience, more significant life offerings. You see the intricate process of creating steely, massive carved stone monuments depicting rulers and their accomplishments, inscribed with glyphs that record history for all time. You spend hours in the libraries, poring over codices far more extensive than your village's modest collection, filled with astronomical data, historical records, and mythological texts. The priests of Tikal, with their vast knowledge and resources, are on another level, and you absorb everything you can, recognizing the immense scope of what you still have to learn. A quirky or fringe tidbit, the Grand Plaza of Tikal, surrounded by its iconic pyramids, was designed with a complex acoustic system. If you stand in the right spot, a whisper from one side of the plaza can be heard clearly on the other, thanks to the way the sound waves bounce off the temple steps. Imagine attending a sermon where the priest could project his voice across an entire city square without a megaphone. Historians still argue whether the monumental architecture of cities like Tikal was primarily for religious purposes, to honor the gods and house the priests, or if it also served as a display of political power and social control, designed to awe the populace and intimidate rivals. It's likely both, as the sacred and the secular were deeply intertwined in Mayan society, with rulers often claiming divine lineage and legitimacy. For you, Tikal is a glimpse into the zenith of your civilization, a breathtaking testament to human ingenuity and devotion, a place that profoundly expands your understanding of what is possible. The awe of Tikal slowly gives way to the practicalities of learning, but the scale of the city leaves an indelible mark on your young mind. You return to your village with a broadened perspective, your senses sharpened, your hunger for knowledge intensified. The Akin notices the change in you, the new confidence in your step, the deeper understanding in your eyes. But Tikal isn't the only place where the world expands. Your village, though remote, is not entirely isolated. It lies on a minor trade route, a smaller artery feeding into the vast network that crisscrosses the Mayan lowlands. And this means, occasionally, you encounter the Pochteca, the long-distance merchants. These aren't your local market vendors. These are seasoned travelers, men of immense courage and cunning, who navigate dangerous jungle paths and even more perilous political landscapes to bring exotic goods from far-flung regions. They arrive in your village laden with packs, often accompanied by armed guards, their faces weathered by sun and wind. You hear the distinct sounds of their approach long before you see them, the rhythmic padding of their feet, the jingle of their trade goods, the low murmur of their voices. Your village gathers, curious, a bit wary, but always eager to see what new wonders they bring. You watch them set up their temporary stalls in the village plaza, unfurling textiles woven in patterns you've never seen, displaying obsidian blades of a quality far superior to local flint, or offering small, intricately carved jade figurines from the highlands. You might even see iridescent feathers from birds found only in the most remote cloud forests, or shimmering shells from the distant coasts. The Akin often sends you to observe them, not just for idle curiosity, but to understand the flow of goods, the value of different commodities, and the connections between your humble village and the wider Mayan world. It's like watching a modern-day international cargo ship dock, but instead of shipping containers, it's exotic birds and precious stones. You listen intently as they haggle and converse, their language often spiced with words and accents unfamiliar to your local dialect. They speak of distant city-states, of rulers you've never heard of mountains that touch the sky and oceans that stretch beyond the horizon. They tell tales of dangerous encounters with jaguars, of navigating treacherous rivers, and of trading with peoples whose customs are entirely alien. You hear whispers of the great port cities on the coast, where canoes laden with goods from even further afield, perhaps from the distant lands of the Mexica or even beyond, arrive regularly. These stories ignite your imagination, painting vivid pictures of worlds beyond your current comprehension, vast and complex. Sometimes a trader might carry a codex or a small, intricately carved bone with glyphs on it, different from those you've learned. The Akin engages them in conversation, examining their wares with a critical eye, often asking about the provenance of certain goods. You notice that these traders, while not priests, possess a different kind of knowledge, a practical, worldly understanding of logistics, economics, and diplomacy. They are the arteries of the Mayan world, keeping its diverse parts connected. A mainstream historical fact is that long-distance trade was crucial for the classic Maya, not just for luxury goods like jade and obsidian, but also for utilitarian items like salt, which was essential for survival and could be a major source of wealth and power for cities controlling salt production. You learn to recognize the value of cacao beans, which serve as a form of currency, traded by the handful or by the sack. You see how different regions specialize in different goods: the highlands for jade and obsidian, the lowlands for cotton and cacao, the coasts for salt and shells. This interconnectedness means that a drought in one region can have ripple effects across hundreds of kilometers, impacting the availability and price of essential goods in your own village. It's a complex global economy, just without the internet and overnight shipping. A quirky or fringe tidbit: some Mayan trade routes were so extensive that archaeological evidence suggests limited contact and exchange of goods with cultures as far north as what is now the southwestern United States. Imagine a piece of turquoise from Arizona ending up in a Maya priest's offering in Tikal. The ancient world was far more connected than we often imagine. Historians still argue whether the Mayan economy was primarily driven by elite-controlled tribute and luxury goods, or if there was a robust network of commoner-level trade and market exchange. While monumental inscriptions often highlight the role of rulers in acquiring exotic goods, the sheer volume and variety of everyday items found at archaeological sites suggest a dynamic marketplace operating at multiple levels of society. For you, these encounters with foreign traders are a window into the vastness of the Mayan world, showing you that beyond the familiar rhythm of your village and the grandeur of Tikal, there are countless other communities, each with their own stories, their own gods, and their own unique contributions to the grand tapestry of Mayan civilization. Having witnessed the monumental scale of Tikal and the far-reaching connections of the trade routes, you return to the predictable yet profoundly significant rhythms of your own village. Your experiences have matured you, adding layers of context to the lessons you receive from the Akin. You are no longer just an apprentice. You are becoming a full-fledged priest, capable of leading ceremonies and guiding your community. And few ceremonies are as universally important as those celebrating the solstices. The summer solstice, the longest day of the year, marks the sun's highest point in the sky. For an agricultural people like the Maya, this day is pregnant with meaning. It heralds the height of the growing season, a time of abundance, but also a moment when the sun god, Kinechahau, is at his most powerful and demanding. You, now confident in your astronomical observations, lead the villagers to a designated clearing or a small, natural alignment of stones that you and the Akin have used for years. The air is already thick with heat and humidity, promising the coming rains. As the sun begins its ascent, painting the sky with fiery hues, you begin the chants, your voice resonating with the ancient prayers. You beg the villagers in offerings of maize, copal, and sometimes even small blood offerings from their own bodies, a prick of the finger, a slight cut to the earlobe, placed carefully on bark paper and burned, the smoke rising as a visible prayer. You explain the sun's journey, its daily triumph over the forces of darkness in the underworld, and its vital role in sustaining life. You invoke Kinechahau, asking for continued warmth and light, for the strength to ripen the corn, and for protection against blight and drought. The atmosphere is solemn, yet charged with a palpable sense of community and shared purpose. It's like a massive, deeply spiritual block party, but with a lot more reverence and slightly less barbecue. Then comes the winter solstice, the shortest day, when the sun appears to pause at its lowest point before beginning its slow climb back towards longer days. This is a more introspective, perhaps even slightly anxious time. It marks the end of the harvest season and the beginning of the dry, cooler months. It's a period of potential scarcity when the sun's power is at its weakest. Again, you lead the ceremonies, but the tone is different. There's a plea for the sun's return, a fervent hope for its renewed strength. You might offer prayers to the maize god, Yumkax, asking for the successful storage of the harvested corn and for the promise of a new growing cycle. These solstice ceremonies are not just about acknowledging astronomical events. They are deeply woven into the agricultural calendar and the very fabric of Mayan cosmology. They reinforce the cyclical nature of time, the constant dance between light and darkness, life and death, abundance and scarcity. Your role is to be the bridge between these cosmic forces and your community, ensuring that the proper rituals are performed, that the gods are appeased, and that the delicate balance of the universe is maintained. A mainstream historical fact is that many major Mayan temples and ceremonial platforms were specifically aligned to celestial events like the solstices and equinoxes, demonstrating the profound integration of astronomy and architecture in their culture. These were not just beautiful buildings. They were giant scientific instruments and sacred calendars. You also participate in the equinox celebrations, when day and night are of equal length. These moments of balance are particularly sacred to Kukulkan, the feathered serpent, a deity associated with wind, wisdom, and cosmic equilibrium. You might witness, or even help to lead, ceremonies that involve offerings of precious feathers and chants designed to honor this powerful god, ensuring harmony in the natural world. A quirky or fringe tidbit: at certain Mayan sites like Chichen Itza on the spring and autumn equinoxes, the shadow of the setting sun creates the illusion of a serpent, Kukulkan, slithering down the steps of the main pyramid. This isn't just a coincidence. It's a deliberate feat of architectural engineering, showcasing their profound understanding of both astronomy and sacred geometry. Imagine the oohs and ahs from the crowd when that shadow serpent appears. Historians still argue whether the elaborate calendrical and astronomical systems of the Maya were primarily driven by a priestly class, seeking to exert social and political control through their exclusive knowledge, or if they were a genuine expression of a widespread communal spiritual worldview. It's probably a bit of both, as knowledge often translates to power, but the deep integration of these concepts into everyday life suggests a shared understanding and belief system. For you, standing there, leading your community in these ancient rituals, you feel the immense weight of tradition and the profound connection to the cycles that have governed life for generations. A silent promise that the sun will always return, and with it, the hope of renewal. The rhythmic cadence of the seasons, once a comforting certainty, begins to falter. The long, predictable dry season stretches on day after day, week after week. The usual afternoon clouds, heavy with the promise of rain, fail to materialize. The sun, once a benevolent life-giver, now beats down with an unrelenting, scorching intensity. This is the drought, a creeping, insidious threat that slowly chokes the life out of your world. As a priest, you feel the burden of it acutely, the silent desperation of your people weighing heavily on your shoulders. It's like watching a slow-motion catastrophe unfold, knowing that every parched leaf, every cracking patch of earth, is a silent cry for help. The cornfields, once a vibrant green, turn brittle and yellow. The young stalks, meant to grow tall and strong, wither before they can bear fruit. You see the worry etched on the faces of the farmers, the very people you grew up alongside. Their usual cheerful chatter is replaced by hushed whispers and anxious glances at the relentlessly clear sky. The Akin and you, along with the other village elders, spend countless hours in prayer and ritual, but the clouds remain stubbornly absent. You increase the frequency of bloodletting ceremonies, offering more precious drops of life force to Chak, the rain god, depicted with his axe and lightning. You lead processions to sacred cenotes, the natural sinkholes that are gateways to the underworld and sources of precious groundwater, offering copal and jade into their cool, dark depths, begging for the life-giving waters to return. The effects are immediate and devastating. Water sources begin to dwindle. The small streams that usually flow through the jungle reduce to trickles, then dry beds. The village well, once abundant, requires deeper and deeper digging. You see women and children spending longer hours collecting water, their pots heavier, their journeys more arduous. Food stores begin to run low. The previous year's harvest, once a comfortable buffer, is rapidly consumed. The precious maize, the very foundation of your diet, becomes scarce. Meals grow smaller, bellies emptier. You feel the gnawing hunger yourself, a constant dull ache that reminds you of the precariousness of life. It's a harsh reality check, reminding everyone that even with all your calendrical wisdom, ultimately, you are at the mercy of the gods and the elements. Desperation begins to set in. People grow gaunt, their movements slow and listless. Children, usually so boisterous, play with a subdued energy. Some families, driven by hunger, begin to leave the village, seeking sustenance in other areas, though you know the drought likely extends far beyond your immediate vicinity. The social fabric, usually so strong, begins to fray under the relentless pressure. There are whispers of discontent, questions about why the gods are seemingly ignoring your pleas. You, as a priest, bear the brunt of these unspoken questions, feeling the weight of expectation and the crushing impotence of your rituals against such a powerful natural force. A mainstream historical fact is that prolonged droughts are considered a significant contributing factor to the collapse of many classic Maya city-states. While not the sole cause, climate change and environmental degradation likely put immense pressure on their agricultural systems, leading to food shortages, social unrest, and increased warfare. So your current predicament isn't just bad luck, it's a symptom of a larger systemic vulnerability. You also observe the subtle shifts in human behavior. People become more guarded, less willing to share what little they have. There's a palpable tension in the air, a sense of fear that permeates every interaction. As a priest, you try to maintain hope, to reassure your community that the cycles will turn, that Chaik will eventually answer. But even your own faith is tested by the relentless, parched reality of the world around you. A quirky or fringe tidbit: Some Mayan communities practice rituals involving the sacrifice of children, often to the rain god Chak. In times of extreme drought, believing that the purest offerings were necessary to appease the deities and bring rain. While you may never witness such an extreme act in your village, the desperation that could lead to such practices hangs like a pall over the suffering community. Historians still argue whether the Maya fully understood the long-term ecological impact of their intensive agricultural practices, such as deforestation and soil erosion, which may have exacerbated the effects of natural droughts. While they possessed incredible astronomical and calendrical knowledge, their relationship with the environment was complex, and their innovations, while initially successful, may have inadvertently contributed to their later challenges. For you, living through this, the drought is a brutal teacher, showing you the limits of human knowledge and the overwhelming power of nature, a stark reminder that even the most elaborate rituals cannot always bend the will of the gods. The drought eventually breaks, a slow, agonizing turn of the cosmic wheel. The first hesitant drizzles become downpours, rejuvenating the parched earth, bringing a collective sigh of relief to your village. The corn, though stunted, begins to sprout anew, and a fragile hope returns. But the experience leaves a deep scar, a haunting memory of vulnerability. It's a harsh lesson that even the most meticulously observed rituals and the deepest understanding of celestial cycles cannot fully control the unpredictable forces of nature. As a seasoned priest now, you carry this awareness, understanding that while you can predict the patterns, you cannot always dictate the outcomes. It is in this period of recovery and reflection that you begin to encounter certain texts, not the straightforward astronomical tables or historical accounts, but cryptic prophecies, inscribed on stele in abandoned ruins or recorded in fragments of ancient codices. These are not prophecies of immediate events, but of grander, more sweeping changes, foretelling the rise and fall of Keatens, the completion of vast Bacton cycles, and the inevitable shifts in the cosmic order. The Akin introduces you to these texts with a solemn air, emphasizing their gravity. It's like finding ancient, coded messages that speak of the future of your entire civilization, not just your village. You learn to decipher the language of these prophecies, which is often allegorical, rich with metaphor and symbolic imagery. They speak of the ending of a Ketan, not as an apocalypse, but as a period of profound transition, a time when old ways might give way to new ones, when existing powers might wane and new leaders emerge. You read of specific Ketan prophecies, each associated with a particular place or ruling lineage, foretelling whether that period will be one of prosperity, war, or decline. It's a bit like reading historical forecasts, but for centuries at a time, and with far more profound implications than whether it will rain next Tuesday. Some prophecies speak of the return of certain deities, or the manifestation of their power in new forms. Others hint at the movement of peoples, the shifting alliances between city-states, or the ultimate fate of powerful dynasties. You realize that the Mayan worldview, while deeply rooted in cyclical time, also acknowledges a forward movement, a grand narrative unfolding over millennia. It's not just endless repetition, but a spiral, where similar themes recur, but always with a new twist, a new lesson. One particularly striking theme in some of these prophecies is the idea of a descending god, or a period when the established order might be challenged from within or without. You might find references to the burden of the Keatan shifting from one city-state to another, or the symbolic seating of a new ruler in a different locale, implying a transfer of power or influence. These aren't threats, but warnings, insights into the ebb and flow of cosmic energy and human destiny. A mainstream historical fact is that the Maya had a deep and sophisticated understanding of prophecy, particularly concerning the cycles of their long count calendar. Many of their monumental inscriptions recorded these prophecies, linking them to specific historical events and the reigns of their rulers. essentially using prophecy as a way to legitimize current power and to frame historical narratives. They weren't just predicting the future, they were writing it in a sense. You realize that your role as a priest extends beyond guiding daily rituals. It also involves being a custodian of these profound long-range predictions. You must understand them, interpret them, and know when and how to convey their messages to the ruling elite without causing undue panic or misinterpretation. It's a delicate balance, much like a modern economist trying to warn about a coming recession without triggering a market crash. A quirky or fringe tidbit: some interpretations of Mayan prophecies, particularly from the later Yucatecan Maya texts, like the Chilambalam, describe periods of immense spiritual and cultural decline, even foretelling the arrival of foreigners from the East who would bring new gods and new ways. While these later texts are from a post-conquest era and are influenced by that perspective, the idea of profound societal shifts was embedded in earlier prophecies as well. Historians still argue whether the Maya prophecies were truly predictive in nature, or if they were more a form of retrospective justification, written after events to make them seem preordained. While the accuracy of some aligns remarkably well with historical events, the fluid nature of oral traditions and the tendency to reinterpret texts over time make it a complex question. For you, sitting with these ancient, powerful words, they are not just predictions. They are a profound reminder of the impermanence of even the mightiest civilizations and the continuous unfolding narrative of time itself. The whispers of prophecy, once distant rumblings, begin to manifest as tangible shifts in the world around you. You are no longer a young apprentice, nor even just a village priest. The Akan is now venerable, his steps slower, his eyes often distant, filled with the wisdom of many seasons. You are now the primary spiritual guide for your community, the one consulted on matters great and small, the interpreter of the heavens and the earth. And as you perform your duties, you start to witness the subtle, unsettling signs of decline, not a sudden catastrophe like the drought, but a slow, creeping erosion of the familiar order. It starts with the roads. The ancient causeways, once meticulously maintained by collective labor, show signs of neglect. Patches of jungle encroach, making travel more arduous, less safe. Trade, which once brought a steady stream of exotic goods and news from afar, becomes sporadic. The Pachteca, when they do arrive, are fewer, their loads smaller, their tales often grimmer, stories of distant cities engaged in prolonged warfare, of abandoned settlements, of routes becoming too dangerous to traverse. The vibrant network that once connected your world begins to fray at the edges. Then there are the rumors from the great city-states. Once, Tikal was the undisputed power, its influence reaching far and wide. Now, you hear of other cities, once subservient, growing in power, challenging Tikal's dominance. Warfare, always a feature of Mayan life, becomes more frequent, more brutal. The inscriptions on newly erected stelae, if they are even being carved in the distant centers, focus more on military victories and less on grand astronomical alignments or the peaceful passage of Khatans. There's a palpable shift in focus from divine order to temporal power. Imagine a grand empire slowly losing its grip, its provinces starting to assert their independence, and the central authority becoming stretched thin. Even closer to home, you notice changes. Population in your village, once steadily growing, seems to stagnate, perhaps even subtly decline. Fewer new houses are being built. Some fields lie fallow, untended. The grand communal projects, like the clearing of new land or the construction of elaborate new causeways, are no longer initiated. Resources, once managed with meticulous care, seem to be more thinly stretched. It's a slow bleed, not a gaping wound, but the cumulative effect is undeniable. The Akin, in one of his rare, clear moments of deep reflection, might speak to you of the burden of the Kayatan shifting, of the great cycles coming to an end. He might refer to ancient prophecies that spoke of such times, not of absolute destruction, but of profound transformation, of the world turning over. He reminds you that even the sun sets only to rise again, but that the night between is long and often uncertain. A mainstream historical fact is that the classic Maya collapse was not a uniform event across the entire Maya lowlands, but rather a complex process that occurred over several centuries, with different regions experiencing decline at different times and for varying reasons. So what you're witnessing is part of a larger regional phenomenon. You also notice subtle changes in the religious practices. While the core rituals remain, there's an increased emphasis on protective deities, on rituals to ward off evil and ensure personal safety, rather than grand ceremonies for collective prosperity. The focus seems to be shifting subtly from the broad communal good to more immediate individual survival. It's a pragmatic response to growing insecurity, but it also reflects a weakening of the unified belief system that once bound the city-states together. A quirky or fringe tidbit, some archaeological evidence suggests that towards the later stages of the Classic period, some Maya cities began to construct defensive walls and ditches, a relatively rare occurrence in earlier periods. This indicates a heightened sense of insecurity and increased warfare, moving away from more ritualized conflict towards more destructive existential struggles. Imagine your tranquil village suddenly feeling the need for fortifications. It speaks volumes about the changing times. Historians still argue whether the decline was primarily due to internal factors, such as elite overpopulation, endemic warfare, and a breakdown of the political system, or external pressures like climate change, disease, and the long-term unsustainability of their agricultural practices. It's likely a complex interplay of all these factors, a perfect storm that slowly dismantled one of the ancient world's most sophisticated civilizations. For you, living through it, the collapse is not a theoretical concept from a textbook. It's the gradual dimming of the light, the subtle unraveling of a world you once believed to be eternal, a profound challenge to your faith and your understanding of cosmic order. As the world around you subtly shifts and the shadows of decline lengthen, your role as a priest takes on a new, more profound significance. The old ways are not yet gone, but they are clearly threatened. The once unquestioned authority of the gods and the intricate order of the cosmos, though still believed, feel more fragile, more distant. Your focus now turns, almost instinctively, to preservation. It's like being in a burning library, frantically trying to save the most precious books, the knowledge that defines your culture. You spend countless hours in the temple, not just performing rituals, but meticulously transcribing. You take the crumbling bark paper codices, filled with astronomical tables, calendrical calculations, and sacred histories, and carefully copy them onto new, freshly prepared paper. You painstakingly carve glyphs onto durable stone tablets, ensuring that the wisdom of generations will not be lost to the encroaching jungle or the ravages of time. You understand deeply that this knowledge is the soul of your people, and its loss would be an even greater catastrophe than any drought or war. This isn't just a duty. It's a sacred trust, a desperate race against the tide of oblivion. You work with the few remaining skilled scribes in your village, guiding their hands, correcting their errors, instilling in them the immense importance of their task. You teach the younger apprentices not just to read and write the glyphs, but to understand their context, their deeper meanings, the stories they tell. You emphasize the oral traditions, ensuring that the myths, the historical narratives, and the ritual chants are passed down accurately, memorized by heart, so that even if the written records are lost, the essence of the culture will survive in the collective memory. It's like becoming a human hard drive, storing an entire civilization's operating system. You also focus on the practical application of this knowledge, not just its preservation. with trade routes becoming less reliable and the grand city-states less able to provide. Your community relies more on local resources and self-sufficiency. You use your astronomical knowledge to guide planting and harvesting with even greater precision, optimizing every cycle to maximize yields. You consult the calendars to advise on the most auspicious times for hunting, for gathering wild plants, for repairing homes. Every decision becomes a matter of careful, divinely guided planning. It's a return to fundamentals, a reminder that the most profound wisdom often has the most practical applications. You recognize the growing need for spiritual comfort in these uncertain times. People are anxious, fearful of the future. Your role as a priest becomes even more critical in offering reassurance, in explaining that even periods of decline are part of larger cosmic cycles, that rebirth will eventually follow decay. You emphasize the resilience of the gods, the enduring power of the rituals, and the unbreakable spirit of your people. You tell stories of creation, of renewal, of past challenges overcome, reminding them of their inherent strength. A mainstream historical fact is that during the late Classic period, as many major city-states in the southern lowlands began to decline, there was a shift in power towards the northern Yucatan, where new centers like Chichen Itza would later rise to prominence. This suggests that while some regions experienced decline, Mayan civilization itself was adaptable and continued to flourish elsewhere, carrying its core knowledge and traditions with it. So, while your village might be facing hardship, the flame of Maya culture is not entirely extinguished. You also encourage the younger generation to embrace the old crafts, the pottery, the weaving, the jade carving, not just as trades, but as sacred expressions of cultural identity. Each intricately carved pot, each beautifully woven cloth, is a reaffirmation of who you are, a defiance against the encroaching chaos. It's a quiet resistance, a commitment to beauty and tradition in the face of uncertainty. A quirky or fringe tidbit, some later Mayan texts, like the Popol Vuh of the Highland Maya, were written down in the colonial period using Latin script, but preserving the ancient mythology and cosmology. This demonstrates the incredible resilience of Mayan knowledge and the determination of its custodians to ensure its survival, even under immense pressure. Imagine having to use the alphabet of your conquerors to write down the sacred stories of your ancestors. Historians still argue whether the decline of the classic Maya led to a complete loss of their sophisticated astronomical and calendrical knowledge, or if much of it was preserved by smaller, more resilient communities and later passed down through oral traditions or in fragmented texts. While many monumental centers were indeed abandoned, it's clear that the core elements of Mayan culture persisted, albeit in modified forms. For you, this period is one of profound responsibility, a time when the weight of centuries of wisdom rests in your hands, and your task is nothing less than to ensure that the light of your civilization continues to burn, however dimly, against the gathering night. The sun, which once seemed to shine with unwavering brilliance, now feels tinged with a melancholic hue. You are an old man now, your face a map of the seasons, etched with the joys of abundant harvests and the deep lines of worry from droughts and uncertainties. The Akin who trained you has long since passed into the underworld, his spirit journeying along the Milky Way, and you too feel the proximity of that final journey. The great temples of Tikal, which once awed you with their majesty, are now described by the rare returning traveler as increasingly overgrown, their plazas quieter, their stele crumbling. The era of the classic Maya, the golden age of your civilization, is slowly, inevitably drawing to a close. You sit in your humble temple, the air thick with the scent of burning copal, and look at the codices you painstakingly copied and preserved. The glyphs still speak to you, their stories of creation, of gods and heroes, of celestial dances and calendrical cycles, as vibrant as ever. But fewer young apprentices come to sit at your feet now, eager to learn. The pull of the milpa, the immediate needs of survival, are stronger than the lure of ancient knowledge for many. You teach those who still listen, imparting every piece of wisdom you hold, knowing that you are one of the last living links to a grand tradition. It's a bittersweet role, watching the sunset of an era you have so profoundly been a part of. You reflect on your life, from a small boy marked by omens, to a priest who guided his community through both prosperity and hardship. You have witnessed the ebb and flow of cosmic time and human endeavor. You remember the first time the Akin showed you Venus, burning brightly in the pre-dawn sky, and the wonder you felt. You recall the taste of ripe cacao, the feel of jade against your skin, the exhilarating fear of participating in your first bloodletting ritual. Every memory is a thread in the rich tapestry of your existence, a life dedicated to understanding the sacred dance between heaven and earth. The sounds of the jungle, once a constant, vibrant hum, now seem to carry a note of resignation. The cries of the howler monkeys, the chirping of insects, the rustle of leaves in the wind, they are the eternal chorus, but the human symphony that once accompanied them is fading. The great plazas are not bustling with thousands, but are quiet, echoing with the ghosts of ceremonies past. The grand narratives of powerful kings and their divine accomplishments are giving way to more immediate, smaller stories of survival and endurance. A mainstream historical fact is that by 900 CE, most of the major Maya centers in the southern lowlands were largely abandoned, marking the end of the classic period, though Maya people and culture continued to thrive in other regions and adapt to new circumstances. The civilization didn't vanish, it transformed. You understand that this is not an end, but a transformation. The gods will still watch over the earth, the sun will still rise and set, and the corn will still grow. But the way people interact with these forces, the way they organize their societies, will be different. The grand, centralized power of the city-states may be dissolving, but the spirit of the Maya, their connection to the land and the cosmos, will endure, evolving in new forms. A quirky or fringe tidbit: despite the abandonment of many classic cities, some isolated groups of Maya continued to live within or near these ruins for centuries, maintaining their traditions and occasionally reusing existing structures. Imagine living in the shadow of these massive, silent temples, remnants of a glorious past, still finding meaning and connection within their ancient stones. Historians still argue whether the Maya themselves consciously perceived their period of decline as an end or simply as a profound shift in cosmic cycles, a necessary part of the continuous process of creation and destruction. While the archaeological record clearly shows a cessation of monumental construction and hieroglyphic inscriptions in many areas, the persistence of Maya culture and people suggests a more resilient and adaptable worldview than a simple collapse implies. For you, the priest of a fading era, the greatest comfort lies in the knowledge you have safeguarded, the wisdom you have passed on, a flickering flame against the encroaching darkness. You have done your part. The light may be dimming, but it is not extinguished. It merely awaits a new dawn, a new cycle, a new beginning, in the endless dance of time. You lean back, feeling the cool stone of the temple wall against your tired frame. The last rays of the setting sun cast long, peaceful shadows across the floor. A gentle breeze whispers through the open doorway, carrying the scent of night-blooming jasmine and the distant, soothing chorus of frogs. You close your eyes, the images of a lifetime, the vibrant jungle, the towering pyramids, the endless stars dancing behind your eyelids. There is a deep, abiding peace in knowing you have walked your destined path, that you have seen and understood much of the sacred fabric of existence. The world will continue in new forms, with new stories, but the ancient wisdom you guarded will always be a part of its silent, enduring heart. The universe breathes in and breathes out, and you, a small part of that immense breath. Feel yourself slowly, peacefully fading into the quiet embrace of the night. Sleep now, knowing you have played your part. Sweet dreams.